Hello, today is Saturday, January 8th, and today's message is I relax and trust in the order of today. I have faith in the perfect unfoldment of my life. Now, I'm going back to Sasha Grahams' book today and doing the reading that is scheduled for January 8th. Sidebar, today is my niece's birthday, and that is all I will say about that. A little shout out, she'll know. So, today's spread, and so I ended up mixing up some days because I did the Betty White. I keep calling it the Betty White, and I know it wasn't the Betty White spread, but it was like the friend spread. And I switched out some readings, and then I didn't want to do the reading of the 7th, so I went back and I did the big purchase reading on the 7th. And now on the 8th, it's actually the get out of debt spread. So it's kind of like a little money theme here for the last 2 days. This particular spread is kind of a long one, so I'll start laying out the cards while I talk about it. So this spread has to do with President Andrew Jackson in 1835 made an announcement that I don't know if it's ever happened again since, but it hadn't happened before. And that is that in 1835, he announced that the national debt had been paid. And so, sort of using that date as, being debt free does release anxiety and allows you to sort of save and gives you the freedom to choose what you spend money on. So sort of using that date on this day, was January 8th in 1835, when the national, debt had been paid. We'll use that to guide today's reading. And so, you can pause the video for a second. You want to take a few deep breaths, really sit with this and imagine yourself debt free. I mean, maybe you are, I don't know. So you want to just know that you build confidence and stability with each card you cast. So if you're doing this for yourself and you really want to think about that, later on, do that as you cast the cards. And also just a little note is that not all debt is bad. Borrowing for a home or education can make financial sense as long as you don't maybe over borrow, or that you can afford the monthly payments. I know the reading for yesterday was about making big purchases, and it really spoke about a big purchase, like a large purchase, or at least a large investment in self was really a big message yesterday. So keeping it in line with that, let's go ahead and jump into this get out of debt spread. So our first question here in this number 1 spot, where we have the 7 of Wands, it is, what is a core reason I got into debt? So this card really represents perseverance and working really hard towards something. And so I think the core reason of why we sometimes get into debt, or as a collective, what this debt represents is maybe not, I'm really getting the message of working more and harder towards something, but not wiser or not being informed. So wands are very fiery energy. They can be impulsive. They also really speak to our creativity, to our passions, to our desires. And sometimes that energy can be impulsive too. And so while we're persevering and working really hard for something, we can be blinded, and there might be an easier path. And easier doesn't maybe mean faster or easier. It might actually mean the opposite. It might mean taking longer for something, and we're trying to just really plow through it. I'm getting the message of, when you plant something and then you want to continually till it because you want to see if it's growing, and so you just have to let it rest. And so one core reason why we've gotten into debt, or as you're thinking about this, could be some sort of like an impulsive nature, whatever it was, maybe not really looking at everything to see if this was something you really could afford and really sit with it. And it's like, say, for a home or education. It's maybe not being really ready to take that leap, but convincing yourself that if you work really hard, because this is a home or this is education, those are good investments, that it would work out. And so maybe you ended up getting in debt and not, and then being really upset about, like, you worked hard, so why did this still happen? But even in those almost sound investments, we need to take the time to do our research around it, because sometimes working harder towards something doesn't necessarily mean that it'll work or make sense. So really, I think slowing it down a little bit might have helped, or can also help in how we start to think about getting out of debt. In this number 2 spot, we have, how much debt do I really have? And so the King of Cups, I'm really getting a couple of messages here. And one of them is more spiritual than tangible. And that is that how much debt you really have. So the King of Cups really represents an emotional maturity, really knowing yourself and being comfortable with your emotions and how you express them and how you navigate them. And so, how much debt do you really have? I don't feel like it's a lot, in that sense of it being frivolous or having been, if at the core it was this energy, then how much that you really have isn't a lot. If you really led through your heart and what you were following, this King of Cups here reminds us that if we're leading from a place of authenticity, of our truest desire from our heart, not our ego, not like our mind space, then we can't go wrong. We might be taking the wrong approach to getting there, or the wrong path, maybe a longer path that we don't need to, but it can't be wrong. And so I think that how much that you really have, I think, is, well, clearly will be subjective for each of us. This is a collective reading, but this is really telling us that if the area that you're thinking about, the debt that you are meditating on for this reading, is not as big as you're making it. Maybe it may be as big as it feels, if you can honestly, sit back and meditate and know that the decision was made from a very emotionally stable place. In this number 3 spot, we have, do I use my credit card to pay for basics? We have the 2 of Cups. So 2 of Cups is that mirroring affection, a mirroring love, a mirroring of 2 people that sort of come together. So I think if we can look at this as sort of, what are our basic needs, food, your home, whether it's mortgage or rent, your utilities, basic needs like those. And you think about credit, so not having maybe enough to pay for them and having to use credit. This 2 of Cups is not saying that. So do I use my credit card to pay for basics? I would say no, you don't. And it's maybe if you use a credit card for basics, it's because you know that credit card is going to get you points in some other way, that you're going to be able to accrue more than for something else. And so you pay it off monthly. It can also just mean no, like you have either the support from a partner or your own self, because that 2 of Cups can be a love relationship that you have with yourself. So loving your whole self. It can also mean a partnership. So for some of you, it really means that you don't have that. You have like a 2-person, house, like 2 working people in the home providing towards it. So no, it does not appear here that the majority of us listening to this are relying on credit cards to pay for basics. In this 4th spot, do I buy things I do not have cash for? Okay, so this is a little tricky because this is the 9 of Cups. And the 9 of Cups is the ultimate wish fulfillment, is having all the things that you want. and desire. And they've got a little mischievous little grin about them in this deck. So, do I buy things I do not have cash for? I would say no, but you want to be careful. So, the wish fulfillment is you have what you want and you can afford it, and you have the means to have all the things that you want. So no, I don't believe that you're buying things that you don't have cash for. I am just getting a message to just be cautious, like not overly, but just being aware, coming back to what's at the core of being in any kind of debt, whatever debt. So it again, I really do believe that any debt you have, as a collective, the message I'm getting is that it might be some of that good debt we were talking about for a larger purchase and not for smaller things. So really the things that the little pleasures, going to the spa or taking a vacation, or the movies, going out to eat, things like that. It does not appear that you are buying things that you don't actually have money for. Like, you're not getting in debt for your wish, for those things that bring you maybe immediate joy and that you just really like. Maybe you like a particular coffee brand, or you like to go out to eat to a certain place. So it does not appear that you're just spending money on that without having it. I will just sort of juxtapose to, at the core, just sort of caution that as you're listening to this, and whatever the debt situation you were asking about, if it did have to do with like credit card debt that seems like maybe you overspent at Christmas because you really wanted to buy a lot of gifts, and this year has been tough on a lot of people with the situation, maybe not having your usual work, or not maybe not being able to get together with family, and so wanting to purchase things and mail them out, and maybe you overindulged to have this wish fulfillment. It's just a message for some of you, and that is but it's just in the immediate. So there might be a few of you that might have bought things that you didn't have the cash for right now, and it's really speaking to this, like, just the holiday season we're coming out of, and I wouldn't worry too much about that. In this number 5 spot, we have, do I lie to others about what I spend money on? No. No, you do not. This Ace of Cups is, when I say like the hand of God, just offering an endless supply of unconditional love and acceptance and all of those great feelings, right underneath this King of Cups, which is this ultimate, being, emotionally mature and stable in your emotions, and how that is guided, and right above the Hierophant, which is, I don't know what this question is here yet, but I do know that the Hierophant is a very stable, grounded energy. So having this Ace of Cups right here in the spot that says, do I lie to others about what I spend money on? No, you don't need to do that. You're very comfortable with who you are and how and why you make decisions. There is, like I said, some of this fiery energy that can sometimes get the best of you in terms of following your creativity and your passion and wanting to really persevere at all costs, that might get you, in a little bit of an impulsive state. But this other energy far outweighs that. And so you are not somebody that needs to lie about how you're spending money or what you're spending money on. Do I borrow money from friends and family? So here's the Temperance. So the Temperance is, she's balancing, one foot in the water, one foot on the ground. She's pouring water, she's getting water. This is a balancing act. So do you borrow money from friends and family? I would say if you borrow, you pay back. If you loan out, you might, it could very well be, it's very much out in the open. I think that really speaks to this emotional stability. So there isn't a lack of confidence in what decisions you're making, since you're really following your heart space and not overthinking things, or having to make up stories, or having to, borrow from here and do this. I think this goes really hand in hand with this. Do you lie about money? Do you borrow from friends and family? I think it's a very balanced and not overindulgent situation if and when you do, as well as you lending money to friends and family as well. In the 7 spot here, we have, can I stop going over the amount I have budgeted for myself? And there's a 7 of swords. A 7 of swords is a little bit of a trickster energy where maybe you budget for yourself and then you are trying to find other ways around that. However, there's 7-7. I would definitely look up sevens if they're numbers. If it's a life path number for you, if it's a lucky number, I would definitely, it's not a bad number. So it's an actually really abundant aligned number, and you have 2 of them here. The way this card to me, like how I read the 7 of swords, especially here talking about, and it's actually the number 7 spot. So we have a 7, a 7, and this is a 7 in the 7 spot. So 7-7-7. Can I stop going over the amount? I would say yes, you can. It's really just a matter of getting out of your head. Like you're overthinking something and you're trying to, if you're trying to get out of debt and there is something, this really speaks to maybe a smaller debt, maybe a credit card debt that you're trying to figure out how to pay off. And so this could, what could be happening is that, you have a credit card and say you have $500, that you owe. And then you see this offer for another credit card. And if you transfer your balance over there, you'll get these other points and they'll drop the interest rate or something. And so you're doing that. And so it could be where it's not that you're not budgeting for what you need to pay, but it's like you're also trying to find other ways to sort of level up and leverage up your credit or make a little more here and there. And so it's just kind of cautioning you to really read the fine print and make sure that when you're doing that, you're still sticking to the plan that you made. Because remember, you have this really beautiful energy that really speaks to all of this cup energy that's very, centered in our heart space, in our heart chakra. And so that is really, when you're in that space, things can't be wrong, but you can start to overthink things. And sometimes, the game of investing and playing around with money can get exciting in a way that you're trying to outsmart something that you've already planned out. And so it's just saying that, be aware of that. In the 8 spot here, we have, can I honestly start tracking my spending? Yes. And I mean, this is the Hierophant. He is, represents this real, like, very grounded, but also level-headed energy. And so that is, again, King of Cups, Ace of Cups, and then here's the Hierophant. Not accidental that this is how they appear one after the other. And so if you have this emotional stability and you have this overflowing offer of continual, love and confidence and, great feeling about how you're doing things, the Hierophant brings it all together in a very rooted energy. And so you can honestly track how you spend, and you do. It definitely seems like, it feels like in this reading that the getting out of debt is maybe not such a burden for the collective watching this. And if you have questions about a particular debt that you're thinking about, I don't think you need to worry too much, because with a solid plan, you can, the Hierophant way over takes the energy of this 7 of Swords trying to really overly think how they're going to, pay something off, or, think about, maybe not staying in budget. The Hierophant says you can make a plan and stick to it and not have any problem doing so. You just need to get clear with that, and and be wary of this at the core. Like I said, this being driven by these lower chakras, really just these 2 here, right? The sacral and the solar, and really just that fiery energy. But you're rooted. At the end of the day, you have this grounding that's very stable, emotional, and tangible. And so physical and emotional, grounding that's very stable. And so you don't have to worry too much. And, you know, these sevens energies are a little, they're more passing by. They're not like your more overriding energy is like represented by a court card and a major arcana. So that's energy that's much more lasting versus more fleeing energy from these sevens. The ninth spot, can I create a financial approach that will work? Yes. And look at that. You have the King and the Queen of Cups and the Two of Cups. And there's just such beautiful cards here. This Queen of Cups, this, can you create the financial approach that will work? Yes, you can. Because just like you have the emotional stability, you also have the empathy and the compassion to your approach of any area in your life, whether it's financial or other. And so you can create a financial landscape that works for you because you are coming from it from a very authentic heart space of empathy and compassion and mindfulness to yourself and to the situation. And if you use that approach along with this, you know, really grounded earth and, you know, energy, very stable and intellectual approach to it, but you know, but very rooted along with the emotional stability, there's really not anything you can't do, including figuring out how to sort of get out of the debt or make the debt work for you. And in the final spot here, we have, what is the result of implementing your plan? It's the Empress. It's all abundance there. Yeah, I don't even know what else to say about her, except, you know, if you work your plan, you know, so if you can imagine, so like the question here was, you want to be debt free, you know, debt really, you know, being debt free would release anxiety. So imagine yourself debt free, whatever debt it is that is burdening you, and you want to just imagine not having it. Understand that at the core, you're probably working too hard towards achieving that debt-free status, that you haven't fully planned for it. And possibly the debt was accrued due to maybe a couple impulsive situations, and or just really following your creativity and your passion, and just, you know, maybe more hoping that things would just fall into place in a particular way, but without a solid plan. But that's, like I said, this fleeing energy. What really dominates the reading is a more stable, grounded energy, which at the core, really, if this is what got us in debt, the overarching energy is that this was a moment. This was like a fleeting moment of overdoing something or not thinking through in that moment, sort of anchored in overthinking it and how it is that you're going to resolve it. So this sort of impulsive energy followed by overthinking energy is fleeing. It's underlying, you know, let's look up 777 and you'll see that it's okay. And the rest of the reading is really speaking to, you don't have to worry about this. You have your heart's desire, you have the emotional stability, you have the physical rooted stability that you need. You have that abundance being offered of emotional stability, of compassion, of empathy. When you see the situation, you have balance in that. And the result is, you know, there's wish fulfillment, and then there's the Empress right underneath it. So if you already had this just adds to it, just amplifies it. So it makes it to the 100th power there of having that wish fulfillment. So I don't see that anyone watching this has to worry too much about getting out of any debt that they are currently in. And it's also giving me the impression that the debt you might be thinking about or asking about it really feels like it's related to that good debt, which is maybe you have a mortgage and you're worried because you're hearing that interest rates are going to go up, or, you know, you're paying off student loans, and, work has been crazy or up and down and you're wondering if it was worth it. And so those larger debts, larger investments that you've made, I don't think you need to worry about at this time. They're going to continue. They're going to pay back, or they're going to develop into resources as they were meant to. So they're not bad debt. They're debt that's going to pay you in the long run. So they were good investments. They may not feel like that maybe right now if things are a little rushed, but I think that's why you need to just take a little pause from this energy of being overly impulsive about how you got there and how do you get out of that, or trying to trick yourself into how you're going to do that. I don't think you need to worry about that. You're solid. I'm going to do an angel answers just to get a line thing of overarching final message. And we got recovery. So definitely speaks to these sevens here, the 7 of Wands and this 7 of Swords. And also some major growth in some of this emotional work that's been done here. This King of Cups, this Queen of Cups. So recovery, this is a how do I get out of debt, or not how do I, but how, getting out of debt spread. There is recovery. If this is a debt that was accrued by something maybe more frivolous that you do think back and you do wish you could, erase, but now you're having to pay back, recovery is around the corner for you. Recovery will be yours. If it was, if it does feel grand, like student loan debt can feel that way. So can a mortgage when the housing market is up and down. Don't worry, there is recovery ahead, and you will have that. You will have that, and so you don't have to worry. The recovery is the recovery is your result, as well, and that is this Empress, this sitting comfortably and not having to worry. But definitely, keep your buying sort of things that you may not have cash for. We want all those things that we want. And we just have to be careful how it is that we go about planning for them, budgeting for them, and being aware that we're not exerting ourselves for no reason and making things a little worse, which sometimes we can do when we get too in our heads or in our feels about things, not in a mature, stable, compassionate, mindful view, but a more frivolous view. But I really don't see that as an issue here. So it's a really, really beautiful read, especially in regards to a topic like debt, which can be really heavy. As a collective, I do not see this as something that we need to be worrying about. I will end this reading by saying that I read intuitively, and I'm reading these spreads as they were written out. And, this is a get out of debt spread, and I read the cards that way. There is another underlying message to this, and it's the debt that isn't tangible or financial, and a debt to ourselves emotionally when we don't give to ourselves. And that did come through as well. And this recovery card really sort of, I could hear loud in my head, which is we can also get out of that debt to ourselves when we're not loving ourselves, when we're not giving to ourselves the way that we should be. And so that's definitely not in a tangible purchase, money exchange way, but in a way of giving emotionally, mentally to ourselves. And so again, this sort of tricky, moving too fast or trying to pull a fast one on ourselves, kind of over on this side of these sevens. And then this really beautiful energy that speaks of balance and love and being grounded. And, the 2 of Cups, and then having the King and Queen of Cups, which is like this ultimate, couple right on here. And this mirroring, it really is also speaking to me personally. I just need to get this message out before I end this for real this time. And that is that it's you and your higher self, what you believe in, if that's a higher self, if that's God, if that's, the universe or source or spirits, your angel guides, all of that. What do you feel? What is guiding you? And know that you have this offer that's always being handed to you, and that you have the potential, to have anything, all this wish fulfillment, to sit strong in your throne as you rule yourself. And it really comes with getting out of emotional debt to yourself and loving yourself enough so that you can receive and be open to love from others. And that can be financial, that can be that tangible, in resources, in abundance that we all have access to. But sometimes, we're limited, or we're stunted by that. We're in debt to ourselves because we have blockages, right? Where we're a little, we have stuff we're trying to play, we play mind games on ourselves. And so sometimes, when that happens, we block really good energy flowing into us, and that creates a debt to ourselves. And honestly, over time, that can manifest itself in tangible ways. So we start working harder, not smarter. We start buying things we can't afford because we're filling a void that we think stuff will fill for us, and that will give us our wish fulfillment, or give us this love that we all desire, when really we have that within us, and we have an endless supply of it. And so I just need to get that message out too. And so the debt can also speak to that. If that speaks to you, then this is saying that we can get out of that debt as well. And it begins with, being open to receive that love from ourselves, to embrace wish fulfillment, to be able to to look in the mirror, and love what we see, and show that compassion, that empathy to ourselves. So with that, I will end this reading, and I will see you tomorrow, Sunday, January 9th.